Okay. I am basically as prepped as I'm going to be. Uh, hello, and welcome uh, back, hopefully, to Storytime Saturdays. I will be your narrator, Fragath. And today, similar to what we did earlier in the year, this past summer, we did a full read through of the book Blindsight. This time, though, I am doing a read through of Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. It is a seminal entry in that illustrious genre we know as cyberpunk. Um, it is not the first cyberpunk novel. It is certainly not the last. It is maybe not even the most definitive, but my gosh, it has been quite influential. Um, very influential indeed. And you will see that, or hear it as the case may be, or see within your mind's eye, um, with any luck. Oh, it helps if I, there we go, much better. Um, show off the cover there. And I interrupted myself mid thought. That's good. Because the cat is standing on me and he is having questions. Um, it's pretty influential, and you will see that as we go through. You will definitely see that. It'll be hard to miss. You'll be listening and you'll be like, wait a minute, that sounds just like, oh, so that's where they got that idea. And it'll be like, yeah, that's where they got that idea. It's either Snow Crash, Neuromancer, or Blade Runner, folks. Cyberpunk. It's broad as an ocean, and it wears its influences on its sleeve. I won't say how deep it is. Sometimes it's pretty deep. Other times, not so much. Uh, Cyberpunk as a genre has tended to get some flack for being either derivative or um, excessively try hard, I guess could be the word to use. Um, and some of it's deserved. Some works are a lot worse than others, but you get that with most fiction. Um, it it can't all be good. We can't all be William Gibson at the early on in his career. We can't. But we can try. Damn it, we can try. Speaking of William Gibson, that reminds me of this two-book series that I read recently. What was it called? Oh, it doesn't. I don't remember. I think it was. The basic premise was Earth had flooded, and you had people with like VR goggles doing cyberpunky things all the time in floating cities. Um, I want to say it was someone named Ren Warum. Yes, there we go. Escapology and virology, sort of a duology of books that basically felt, if I'm being kind, like fairly blatant ripoffs of Neuromancer. Um, fairly blatant, right up to and including the climax, but more of a power fantasy. And if the main character, instead of being a young gawky teen, was a young gawky trans person, I might be thinking of a different series. Um, now that I think of it, because that sounds fairly improbable. But they were okay. They were okay. Just felt derivative. So, back on track. Now we're talking Neal Stephenson and Snow Crash. So, if memory serves, and I didn't take notes and write this down anywhere because I'm a goof, it started off originally as a project that was going to be a graphic novel slash comic book series, self-contained series, small, and that did not wind up happening. It like they started it, they had a bunch of illustrations and stuff that they made or whatever concepts, and then and by they I mean Neal Stephenson and whoever he was working on the book with at the time. Um, I think the illustrator. Uh, then like either due to funding or they just weren't making the progress they wanted, kind of scrap the idea and we're like, oh, whatever. Um, and then a couple of years later, or shortly thereafter, Neal Stephenson's like, frigate, we've got all the storyboard stuff written up. We might as well just pump this out as a book, if nothing else. And the rest is history, as they say. So the book came out in 1992, the far-flung, centuries-old era of 92. Um, Similar to Blind Sight, there are some ideas postulated uh, that can be directly linked to the origin of consciousness in the breakdown of the bicameral mind by Julian Jaynes from that was the mid 70s, I think. 73 or 76, one of the two. My memory is. I'm not going to go and look that up right now because ain't nobody got time for that. So yeah, Snow Crash. I guess my rambling is done, and let's get right down to it. I just get another swig of water here. Yes, cat, meow. Indeed. Just don't stand on the keyboard, okay? Thank you. You're benevolent. I know. Come on, scooch. Thank you. Sorry about this. I am feline wrangling. A tricky proposition at the best of times. It is true. Okay. Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. Chapter 1. The Deliberator belongs to an elite order, a hallowed subcategory. He's got esprit up to here. Right now, he is preparing. Oh, one sec. One sec. All right. I'm getting a phone call. Because, of course. So we'll try this again in a minute. One moment. And we're back. That was unfortunate. But here we go. Okay, let's take this from the top. So, snow crash, right. Hopefully there will be no further interruptions, but we'll see. Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. Chapter 1. The Deliberator belongs to an elite order, a hallowed subcategory. He's got esprit up to here. Right now, he is preparing to carry out his third mission of the night. His uniform is black as activated charcoal, filtering the very light out of the air. A bullet will bounce off its arachnofiber weave like a wren hitting a patio door, but excess perspiration wafts through it like a breeze through a freshly napalmed forest. Where his body has bony extremities, the suit has sintered armor gel, feels like gritty jello, protects like a stack of telephone books. When they gave him the job, they gave him a gun. The Deliberator never deals in cash, but someone might come after him anyway, might want his car or his cargo. The gun is tiny, arrow-styled, lightweight, the kind of a gun a fashion designer would carry. It fires teensy darts that fly at 5 times the velocity of an SR-71 spy plane, and when you get done using it, you have to plug it into the cigarette lighter because it runs on electricity. The Deliberator never pulled that gun in anger or in fear. He pulled it once in Gila Highlands. Some punks in Gila Highlands, a fancy burbclave, wanted themselves a delivery, and they didn't want to pay for it. Thought that they would impress the Deliberator with a baseball bat. The Deliberator took out his gun, centered its laser doohickey on that poised Louisville slucker, and fired it. The recoil was immense, as though the weapon had blown up in his hand. The middle third of the baseball bat turned into a column of burning sawdust, accelerating in all directions like a bursting star. Punk ended up holding this bat handle with milky smoke pouring out the end. Stupid look on his face. Didn't get nothing but trouble from the Deliberator. Since then, the Deliberator has kept the gun in a glove compartment and relied, instead, on a matched set of samurai swords, which have always been his weapon of choice anyhow. The punks in Gila Highlands weren't afraid of the gun, so the Deliberator was forced to use it. But swords need no demonstrations. The Deliberator's car has enough potential energy packed into its batteries to fire a pound of bacon into the asteroid belt. Unlike a bimbo box or burb beater, the Deliberator's car unloads that power through gaping, gleaming, polished sphincters. When the Deliberator puts the hammer down, shit happens. You want to talk contact patches? Your car's tires have tiny contact patches. Talk to the asphalt in 4 places the size of your tongue. The Deliberator's car has big, sticky tires with contact patches the size of a fat lady's thighs. The Deliberator is in touch with the road. Starts like a bad day, stops on a peseta. Why is the Deliberator so equipped? Because people rely on him. He is a role model. This is America. People do whatever the fuck they feel like doing. You got a problem with that? Because they have a right to. And because they have guns and no one can fucking stop them. As a result, this country has one of the worst economies in the world. When it gets down to it, talking trade balances here, once we've brain drained all our technology into other countries, once things have evened out, they're making cars in Bolivia and microwave ovens in Tajikistan and selling them here. Once our edge in natural resources has been made irrelevant by giant Hong Kong ships and dirigibles that can ship North Dakota all the way to New Zealand for a nickel, once the invisible hand has taken all those historical inequities and smeared them out into a broad global layer of, what a Pakistani brickmaker would consider to be prosperity, you know what? There's only four things we do better than anyone else: music, movies, microcode or software, and high speed pizza delivery. The Deliverator used to make software, still does sometimes. But if life were a mellow elementary school run by well meaning education PhDs, the Deliverator's report card would say, Hero is so bright and creative, but needs to work harder on his cooperation skills. So now he has this other job. No brightness or creativity involved, but no cooperation either. Just a single principle. The Deliverator stands tall. Your pie in 30 minutes or you can have it free. Shoot the driver, take his car, file a class action suit. The Deliverator has been working this job for 6 months, a rich and lengthy tenure by his standards, and has never delivered a pizza in more than 21 minutes. Oh, they used to argue over times, many corporate driver years lost to it. Homeowners, red-faced and sweaty with their own lies, stinking of Old Spice and job-related stress, standing in their glowing yellow doorways, brandishing their Seikos and waving at the clock over the kitchen sink. I swear, can't you guys tell the time? Didn't happen anymore. Pizza delivery is a major industry, a managed industry. People went to Cosa Nostra Pizza University for years just to learn it. Came in its doors unable to write an English sentence from Abkhazia, Rwanda, Guanajuato, South Jersey, and came out knowing more about pizza than a Bedouin knows about sand. And they had studied this problem. Graphed the frequency of doorway delivery time disputes, wired the early deliverators to record, then analyze the debating tactics, the voice stress histograms, the distinctive grammatical structures employed by white middle class type A burbclave occupants who, against all logic, had decided that this was the place to take their personal Custerian stand against all that was stale and deadening in their lives. They were going to lie or delude themselves about the time of their phone call and get themselves a free pizza. No, they deserved a free pizza along with their life, liberty, and pursuit of whatever. It was fucking inalienable. Sent psychologists out to these people's houses, gave them a free TV set to submit to an anonymous interview, hooked them to polygraphs, studied their brains, their brain waves, as they showed them choppy, inexplicable movies of porn queens and late night car crashes and Sammy Davis Jr. Put them in sweet smelling, mauve walled rooms and asked them to questions about ethics so perplexing that even a Jesuit couldn't respond without committing a venial sin. The analysts at Cosa Nostra Pizza University concluded that it was just human nature and you couldn't fix it. And so they went for a quick, cheap technical fix: smart boxes. The pizza box is a plastic carapace now, corrugated for stiffness. A little LED readout glowing on the side, telling the deliverator how many trade imbalance producing minutes have ticked away since the fateful phone call. There are chips and stuff in there. The pizzas rest, a short stack of them, in slots behind the deliverator's head. Each pizza glides into a slot like a circuit board into a computer, clicks into place as the smart box interfaces with the onboard systems of the deliverator's car. The address of the caller has already been inferred from his phone number and poured into the smart box's built-in RAM. From there, it is communicated to the car, which computes and projects the optimal route on a heads-up display, a glowing colored map traced out against the windshield so that the deliverator does not even have to glance down. If the 30-minute deadline expires, news of the disaster is flashed to Cosa Nostra Pizza headquarters and relayed from there to Uncle Enzo himself, the Sicilian Colonel Sanders, the Andy Griffith of Bensonhurst, the straight razor swinging figment of many a deliberator's nightmares, the capo and prime figurehead of Cosa Nostra Pizza Incorporated, who will be on the phone to the customer within 5 minutes, apologizing profusely. The next day, Uncle Enzo will land on the customer's yard in a jet helicopter and apologize some more and give him a free trip to Italy. All he has to do is sign a bunch of releases that make him a public figure and spokesperson for Cosa Nostra Pizza and basically end his private life as he knows it. He will come away from the whole thing feeling that, somehow, he owes the mafia a favor. The deliberator does not know for sure what happens to the driver in such cases, but he has heard rumors. Most pizza deliveries happen in the evening hours, which Uncle Enzo considers to be his private time. And how would you feel if you had to interrupt dinner with your family in order to call some obstreperous dork in a burbclave and grovel for a late fucking pizza? Uncle Enzo has not put in 50 years serving his family and his country so that, at the age when most are playing golf and bobbling their granddaughters, he can get out of the bathtub, dripping wet, and lie down and kiss the feet of some 16-year-old skate punk whose pepperoni was 31 minutes in coming. Oh, God! It makes the deliberator breathe a little shallower just to think of the idea. But he wouldn't drive for Cosa Nostra Pizza any other way. You know why? Because there's something about having your life on the line. It's like being a kamikaze pilot. Your mind is clear. Other people, store clerks, burger flippers, software engineers, the whole vocabulary of meaningless jobs that make up life in America, other people just rely on plain old competition. Better flip your burgers or debug your subroutines faster and better than your high school classmate 2 blocks down the strip is flipping or debugging because we're in competition with those guys and people notice these things. What a fucking rat race that is. Cosa Nostra Pizza doesn't have any competition. Competition goes against the mafia ethic. You don't work harder because you're competing against some identical operation down the street. You work harder because everything is on the line. Your name, your honor, your family, your life. Those burger flippers might have a better life expectancy. But what kind of life is it anyway? You have to ask yourself. That's why nobody, not even the Nipponese, can move pizzas faster than Cosa Nostra. The deliberator is proud to wear the uniform, proud to drive the car, proud to march up the front walks of innumerable burbclave homes, a grim vision in ninja black, a pizza on his shoulder, red LED digits blazing proud numbers into the night, 1232 or 1515 or the occasional 2043. The deliberator is assigned to Cosa Nostra Pizza number 3569 in the Valley. Southern California doesn't know whether to bustle or just strangle itself on the spot. Not enough roads for the number of people. Fairlanes Incorporated is laying new ones all the time. Have to bulldoze lots of neighborhoods to do it, but those 70s and 80s developments exist to be bulldozed, right? No sidewalks, no schools, no nothing. Don't have their own police force, no immigration control. Undesirables can walk right in without being frisked or even harassed, sorry. Now a burbclave, that's the place to live. A city-state with its own constitution, a border, laws, cops, everything. The deliberator was a corporal in the farms of Maryvale State Security Force for a while once. Got himself fired for pulling a sword on an acknowledged perp. Slid it right through the fabric of the perp's shirt, gliding the flat of the blade along the base of his neck, and pinned him to a warped and bubbled expanse of vinyl siding on the wall of the house that the perp was trying to break into. Thought it was a pretty righteous bust. But they fired him anyway because the perp turned out to be the son of the vice chancellor of the farms of Maryvale. Oh, the weasels had an excuse. Said that a 36-inch samurai sword was not on their weapons protocol. Said that he had violated the SPAC, the Suspected Perpetrator Apprehension Code. said that the perp had suffered psychological trauma. He was afraid of butter knives now. He had to spread his jelly with the back of a teaspoon. They said that he had exposed them to liability. The deliberator had to borrow some money to pay for it. Had to borrow it from the mafia, in fact. So he's in their database now. Retinal patterns, DNA, voice graph, fingerprints, footprints, palm prints, wrist prints, every fucking part of the body that had wrinkles on it. Almost. Those bastards rolled in ink and made a print and digitized it into their computer. But it's their money. Sure, they're careful about loaning it out. And when he applied for the deliberator job, they were happy to take him because they knew him. When he got the loan, he had to deal personally with the assistant vice capo of the valley, who later recommended him for the deliberator job. So it was like being in a family. A really scary, twisted, abusive family. Cosa Nostra Pizza number 3569 is on Vista Road, just down from Kings Park Mall. Vista Road used to belong to the state of California and is now called Fairlanes Incorporated Route CSV 5. Its main competition used to be a U.S. highway and is now called Cruiseways Incorporated Route Cal 12. Farther up the valley, the two competing highways actually cross. Once there had been bitter disputes, the intersection closed by sporadic sniper fire. Finally, a big developer bought the entire intersection and turned it into a drive-through mall. Now the roads just feed into a parking system. Not a lot, not a ramp, but a system, and lose their identity. Getting through the intersection involves tracing paths through the parking system, many braided filaments of direction like the Ho Chi Minh Trail. CSV 5 has better throughput, but Cal 12 has better pavement. That is typical. Fairlane's roads emphasize getting you there for Type A drivers, and cruiseways emphasize the enjoyment of the ride for Type B drivers. The deliberator is a Type A driver with rabies. He is zeroing in on his home base, Cosa Nostra Pizza number 3569, cranking up the left lane of CSV 5 at 120 kilometers. His car is an invisible black lozenge, just a dark place that reflects the tunnel of franchise signs. The low glow. A row of orange lights burbles and churns across the front, where the grille would be if this were an air-breathing car. The orange light looks like a gasoline fire. It comes in through people's rear windows, bounces off their rearview mirrors, projects a fiery mask across their eyes, reaches into their subconscious, and unearths terrible fears of being pinned, fully conscious, under a detonating gas tank. Makes them want to pull over and let the deliberator overtake them in his black chariot of pepperoni fire. The low glow, overhead, marking out CSV5 in twin contrails, is a body of electrical light made of innumerable cells, each cell designed in Manhattan by imagiers who make more for designing a single logo than a deliberator will make in his entire lifetime. Despite their efforts to stand out, they all smear together, especially at 120 kilometers per hour. Still, it is easy to see Cosa Nostra Pizza number 3569 because of the billboard, which is wide and tall even by current inflated standards. In fact, the squat franchise itself looks like nothing more than a low-slung base for the great aramid fiber pillars that thrust the billboard up into the trademark firmament. Marca Registrada, baby. The billboard is a classic, a chestnut, not a figment of some fleeting mafia promotional campaign. It is a statement, a monument built to endure. Simple and dignified. It shows Uncle Enzo in one of his spiffy Italian suits. The pinstripes glint and flex like sinews. The pocket square is luminous. His hair is perfect, slicked back with something that never comes off, each strand cut off straight and square at the end by Uncle Enzo's cousin, Art the Barber, who runs the second largest chain of low-end haircutting establishments in the world. Uncle Enzo is standing there, not exactly smiling, an avuncular glint in his eye for sure, not posing like a model, but standing there like your uncle would. And it says, "The Mafia. You've got a friend in the family. Paid for by the Our Thing Foundation." The billboard serves as the deliberator's pole star. He knows that when he gets to the place on CSV5 where the bottom corner of the billboard is obscured by the pseudo Gothic stained glass arches of the local Reverend Wayne's Pearly Gates franchise, it's time for him to get over into the right lanes where the retards in the bimbo boxes poke along, random, indecisive, looking at each passing franchise's driveway like they don't know if it's a promise or a threat. He cuts off a bimbo box, a family minivan, veers past the buy and fly that is next door, and pulls into Cosa Nostra Pizza number 3569. Those big fat contact patches complain, squeal a bit, but they hold onto the pavement. Onto the patented Fairlanes Incorporated high traction pavement and guide him into the chute. No other deliverators are waiting in the chute. That is good. That means high turnover for him. Fast action. Keep moving that za. As he scrunches to a stop, the electromechanical hatch on the flank of his car is already opening to reveal his empty pizza slots, the door clicking and folding back in on itself like the wing of a beetle. The slots are waiting, waiting for hot pizza. And waiting. The deliberator honks his horn. This is not a nominal outcome. Window slides open. That should never happen. You can look at the three-ring binder from Cosa Nostra Pizza University, cross-reference the citation for window, chute, dispatchers, and it will give you all the procedures for that window. And it should never be opened. Unless something has gone wrong. The window slides open and, you sitting down, smoke comes out of it. The deliberator hears a discordant beetling over the metal hurricane of his sound system and realizes that it is a smoke alarm coming from inside the franchise. One sec, folks, getting another phone call here. Oh, when it rains, it pours. Okay, that's being the only person in my building who has any technical knowledge whatsoever is quite challenging sometimes, especially when things go wrong. Especially when the things that go wrong are completely beyond my remit or purview. It is not my problem, but I am the one who must fix it. This is fine. Strictly speaking, they should be calling the building manager, which I am not, but whatever, not my problem. Except when they make it my problem. Okay. All right, cat, you can settle back down now, as you are wont to do. Alrighty. Now I have to find where I was before I had to drop everything. Da, 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 da. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. The window slides open. That should never happen. You can look at the three-ring binder from Cosa Nostra Pizza University, cross-reference the citation for window, chute, and dispatchers, and it will give you all the procedures for that window. And it should never be opened, unless something has gone wrong. The window slides open, and, you sitting down, smoke comes out of it. The deliberator hears a discordant beetling over the metal hurricane of his sound system and realizes that it is a smoke alarm coming from the inside of the franchise. Mute button on the stereo. Oppressive silence. His eardrums uncringe. The window is buzzing with the cry of the smoke alarm. The car idles, waiting. The hatch has been open too long. Atmospheric pollutants are congealing on the electrical contacts in the back of the pizza slots. He'll have to clean them ahead of schedule. Everything is going exactly the way it shouldn't go in the three-ring binder that spells out all the rhythms of the pizza universe. Inside, a football-shaped Abkhazian man is running to and fro, holding a three-ring binder open, using his spare tire as a ledge to keep it from collapsing shut. He runs with the gait of a man carrying an egg on a spoon. He is shouting in the Abkhazian dialect. All the people who run Cosa Nostra pizza franchises in this part of the valley are Abkhazian immigrants. It does not look like a serious fire. The deliberator saw a real fire once at the farms of Maryvale, and you couldn't see anything for the smoke. That's all it was. Smoke, burbling out of nowhere, occasional flashes of orange light at the bottom, like heat lightning in tall clouds. This is not that kind of fire. It is the kind of fire that just barely puts out enough smoke to detonate the smoke alarms. And he is losing time for this shit. The deliberator holds the horn button down. The Abkhazian manager comes to the window. He is supposed to use the intercom to talk to drivers. He could say anything he wanted to, and it would be piped straight into the deliberator's car. But no, he has to talk face to face, like the deliberator is some kind of fucking ox cart driver. He is red-faced, sweating. His eyes roll as he tries to think of the English words. "A fire, a little one," he says. The deliberator says nothing, because he knows that all of this is going on to videotape. The tape is being pipelined, as it happens, to Cosa Nostra Pizza University, where it will be analyzed in a pizza management science laboratory. It will be shown to Pizza University students, perhaps to the very students who will replace this man when he gets fired, as a textbook example of how to screw up your life. "New employee put his dinner in the microwave, had foil in it. Boom!" says the manager. Abkhazia had been part of the Soviet fucking Union. A new immigrant from Abkhazia trying to operate a microwave was like a deep-sea tube worm doing brain surgery. Where did they get these guys? Weren't there any Americans who could bake a fucking pizza? "Just give me one pie," the deliberator says. Talking about pies snaps the guy into the current century. He gets a grip. He slams the window shut, strangling the relentless keening of the smoke alarm. A Nipponese robot arm shoves the pizza out and into the top slot. The hatch folds shut to protect it. As the deliverator is pulling out of the chute, building up speed, checking the address that is flashed across his windshield, deciding whether to turn right or left, it happens. The stereo cuts out again, on command of the onboard system. The cockpit lights go red. Red. A repetitive buzzer begins to sound. The LED readout on his windshield, which echoes the one on the pizza box, flashes up. 20 minutes. They have just given the deliverator a 20-minute-old pizza. He checks the address. It is 12 miles away. All right, Kat, you could make this harder, but you'd have to really, really work at it. Come on, Kat, make it harder. I don't know how, but make it more difficult and challenging. Try standing on your head, or standing on my head for that matter. That will make this all but impossible. Try starting to chew on my fingers or something. I know you won't. You're not an aggressive cat. You just need lots of loving, and you are willing to sit on people all day until you get it. I've seen this. Yes, yes, I love you too. Goodness. All right. Chapter 2. The deliberator lets out an involuntary roar and puts the hammer down. His emotions tell him to go back and kill that manager, get his swords out of the trunk, dive in through the little sliding window like a ninja, track him down through the moiling chaos of the microwaved franchise, and confront him in a climactic thick crust apocalypse. But he thinks the same thing when somebody cuts him off on the freeway, and he's never done it. Yet. He can handle this. This is doable. He cranks up the orange warning lights to maximum brilliance, puts his headlights on auto flash. He overrides the warning buzzer, jams the stereo over to taxi scan, which cruises all the taxi driver frequencies listening for interesting traffic. Can't understand a fucking word. You could buy tapes, learn while you drive, and learn to speak taxilingua. It was essential to get a job in that business. They said it was based on English, but not one word in 100 was recognizable. Still, you could get an idea. If there was trouble on this road, they'd be babbling about it in taxilingua, give him some warning, let him take an alternate route so he wouldn't get, he grips the wheel, stuck in traffic. His eyes get big. He can feel the pressure driving them back into his skull, or caught behind a mobile home. His bladder is very full. And deliver the pizza. Oh God, late. 2206 hangs on the windshield. All he can see, all he can think about, is 3001. The taxi drivers are buzzing about something. Taxilingua is mellifluous babble with a few harsh foreign sounds, like butter spiced with broken glass. He keeps hearing fare. They're always jabbering about their fucking fares. Big deal. What happens if you deliver your fare late? You don't get as much of a tip? Big deal. Big slowdown at the intersection of CSV5 and Oahu Road. Per usual, only way to avoid it is to cut through the mews at Windsor Heights. And for a bit of perspective, I found this great image of the deliverator's car on the internet. That is not how to do that. There we go. Uh, it's made by somebody called Igor Sobolevsky, who has a bunch of other technical designs and images floating around. Very pretty. I thought that one was fantastic because That's the deliberator's car. It's right there. TMAWHs all have the same layout. When creating a new burbclave, TMAWH Development Corporation will chop down any mountain ranges and divert the course of any mighty rivers that threaten to interrupt this street plan. Ergonomically designed to encourage driving safety. A deliberator can go into a muse at Windsor Heights anywhere from Fairbanks to Yaroslavl to the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone and find his way around. But once you've delivered a pie to every single house in the Muse at Windsor Heights a few times, you get to know its little secrets. The deliberator is such a man. He knows that in a standard TMAWH there is only 1 yard, that prevents you from driving straight in one entrance across the burbclave and out the other. If you are squeamish about driving on grass, it might take you 10 minutes to meander through TMAWH. But if you have the balls to lay tracks across that 1 yard, you have a straight shot through the center. The deliberator knows that yard. He has delivered pizzas there. He has looked at it, scoped it out, memorized the location of the shed and the picnic table, can find them even in the dark. Knows that if it ever came to this, a 23-minute pizza, miles to go, and a slowdown at CSV5 and Oahu, he could enter the Muse at Windsor Heights, his electronic delivery man's visa would raise the gate automatically, scream down Heritage Boulevard, rip the turn onto Strawbridge Place, ignoring the dead end sign and the speed limit and the children playing ideograms that are strung so liberally throughout the Muse at Windsor Heights. Thrash the speed bumps with his mighty radials, blast up the driveway of number 15 Strawbridge Circle, cut a hard left around the backyard shed, careen into the backyard of number 84 Mayapple Place, avoid its picnic table, tricky, get into their driveway and out onto Mayapple, which then takes him to Bellwood Valley Road, which runs straight to the exit of the burbclave. TMAWH security police might be waiting for him at the exit, but their STDs, severe tire damage devices, only point one way. They can keep people out, but not keep them in. This car can go so fucking fast that if a cop took a bite of a donut as the deliberator was entering Heritage Boulevard, he probably wouldn't be able to swallow it until about the time the deliberator was shrieking out onto Oahu. Thunk! And more red lights come up on the windshield. The perimeter security of the deliberator's vehicle has been breached. No. No. It can't be. Someone is shadowing him. Right off his left flank. A person on a skateboard rolling down the highway right behind him just as he is laying in his approach vectors to Heritage Boulevard. The deliberator, in his distracted state, has allowed himself to get pooned, as in harpooned. It is a big, round, padded electromagnet on the end of an arachnofiber cable. It has just thunked onto the back of the deliberator's car and stuck. 10 feet behind him, the owner of this cursed device is surfing, taking him for a ride, skateboarding along like a water skier behind a boat. In the rear view, flashes of orange and blue. The parasite is not just a punk out having a good time. It is a businessman making money. The orange and blue coverall, bulging all over with sintered armor gel padding, is the uniform of a courier. That's with a K. A courier from Radix, Radical Courier Systems. Like a bicycle messenger, but 100 times more irritating because they don't pedal under their own power. They just latch on and slow you down. Naturally. The deliberator was in a hurry, flashing his lights, squealing his contact patches. The fastest thing on the road. Naturally, the courier would choose him to latch onto. No need to get rattled. With a shortcut through the Muse at Windsor Heights, he will have plenty of time. He passes a slower car in the middle lane, then cuts right in front of him. The courier will have to unpoon or else be slammed sideways into the slower vehicle. Done. The courier isn't 10 feet behind him anymore. He is right there, peering in the rear window. Anticipating the maneuver, the courier reeled in his cord, which is attached to a handle with a power reel in it, and is now right on top of the pizza mobile, the front wheel of his skateboard actually underneath the deliverator's rear bumper. An orange and blue gloved hand reaches forward, a transparent sheet of plastic draped over it, and slaps his driver's side window. The deliverator has just been stickered. The sticker is a foot across and reads, in big orange block letters, printed backwards so that he can read it from the inside, "That was stale." He almost misses the turnoff for the Mews at Windsor Heights. He has to jam the brakes, let traffic clear, cut across the curb lane and to enter the burbclave. The border post is well lighted, the customs agents ready to frisk all comers, cavity search them if they are the wrong kind of people. But the gate flies open as if by magic, as the security system senses that this is a Cosa Nostra pizza vehicle, just making a delivery, sir. And as he goes through, the courier, that tick on his ass, waves to the border police. What a prick! Like he comes in here all the time. He probably does come in here all the time. Picking up important shit for important TMAWH people, delivering it to other FOCNIes, franchise-organized quasi-national entities, getting it through customs. That's what couriers do. Still, he's going too slow, lost all his momentum. His timing is off. Where's the courier? Reeled out some line, is following behind again. The deliverator knows that this jerk is in for a big surprise. Can he stay on his fucking skateboard while he's being hauled over the flattened remains of some kid's plastic tricycle at 100 kilometers? We're going to find out. The courier leans back. The deliverator can't help watching in the rear view, leans back like a water skier, pushes off against his board, and swings around beside him, now traveling abreast with him up Heritage Boulevard, and slap! Another sticker goes up, this one on the windshield. It says, "Smooth move, X-Lax." The deliverator has heard of these stickers. It takes hours to get them off. Have to take the car into a detailing place, pay trillions of dollars. The deliverator has two things on his agenda now. He is going to shake this street scum, whatever it takes, and deliver the fucking pizza all in the space of 24:23, the next 5 minutes and 37 seconds. This is it. Gotta pay more attention to the road. He swings into the side street, no warning, hoping maybe to whipsaw the courier into the street sign on the corner. Doesn't work. The smart ones watch your front tires. They see when you're turning. Can't surprise them. Down Strawbridge Place. It seems so long, longer than he remembered. Natural when you're in a hurry. Sees the glint of cars up ahead. Cars parked sideways to the road. These must be parked in the circle. And there's the house. Light blue vinyl clapboard, 2-story with a 1-story garage to the side. He makes that driveway the center of his universe, puts the courier out of his mind, tries not to think about Uncle Enzo, what he's doing right now. In the bath, maybe, or taking a crap, or making love to some actress, or teaching Sicilian songs to one of his 26 granddaughters. The slope of the driveway slams his front suspension halfway up into the engine compartment, but that's what suspensions are for. He evades the car in the driveway. Must have visitors tonight, didn't remember that these people drove a Lexus. Cuts through the hedge, into the side yard, looks for that shed he absolutely must not run into. It's not there, they took it down. Next problem, the picnic table in the next yard. Hang on, there's a fence. When did they put up a fence? This is no time to put on the brakes. Got to build up some speed, knock it down without blowing all this momentum. It's just a 4-foot wooden thing. The fence goes down easy. He loses maybe 10% of his speed. But strangely, it looked like an old fence. Maybe he made a wrong turn somewhere, he realizes, as he catapults into an empty backyard swimming pool. If it had been full of water, that wouldn't have been so bad. Maybe the car could have been saved. He wouldn't owe Cosa Nostra Pizza a new car. But no, he does a stuka into the far wall of the pool. It sounds more like an explosion than a crash. The airbag inflates, comes back down a second later like a curtain revealing the structure of his new life. He is stuck in a dead car in an empty pool in a TMAWH. The sirens of the Burbclave security police are approaching, and there's a pizza behind his head, resting there like the blade of a guillotine, with the 2517 on it. "Where's it going?" someone says. A woman. He looks up through the distorted frame of the window, now rimmed with a fractal pattern of crystallized safety glass. It is the courier talking to him. The courier is not a man, it is a young woman. A fucking teenaged girl! She is pristine, unhurt. She has skated right down into the pool. She's now oscillating back and forth from one side of the pool to the other, skating up one bank almost to the lip, turning around, skating down and across and up the opposite side. She is holding her poon in her right hand, the electromagnet reeled up against the handle so it looks like some kind of a strange, wide-angle intergalactic death ray. Her chest glitters like a general's with 100 little ribbons and medals, except each rectangle is not a ribbon, it is a barcode. A barcode with an ID number that gets her into a different business, highway or Fockney. "Yo," she says, "where's the pizza going?" He's going to die, and she's gambling. "White columns, 5 Oglethorpe Circle," he says. "I could do that. Open the hatch." His heart expands to twice its normal size. Tears come into his eyes. He may live. He presses a button and the hatch opens. On her next orbit, across the bottom of the pool, the courier yanks the pizza out of its slot. The deliverator winces, imagining the garlicky topping accordioning into the back wall of the box. Then she puts it sideways under her arm. It's more than a deliverator can stand to watch. But she'll get it there. Uncle Enzo doesn't have to apologize for ugly, ruined cold pizzas, just late ones. "Hey," he says, "take this." The deliverator sticks his black-clad arm out the shattered window. A white rectangle glows in the dim backyard light. A business card. The courier snatches it from him on her next orbit. Reads it. It says, "Hero protagonist, last of the freelance hackers, greatest sword fighter in the world, Stringer Central Intelligence Corporation, specializing in software-related intel, music, movies, and microcode." On the back is a gibberish explaining how he may be reached, a telephone number, a universal voice phone locator code, a P.O. box, his address on half a dozen electronic communications nets, and an address in the metaverse. "Stupid name," she says, shoving the card into one of 100 little pockets on her coveralls. "But you'll never forget it," Hero says. "If you're a hacker—" "How come I'm delivering pizzas?" "Right." "Because I'm a freelance hacker. Look, whatever your name is, I owe you one." "Name's YT," she says, shoving at the pool a few times with one foot, building up more energy. She flies out of the pool as if catapulted, and she's gone. The smart wheels of her skateboard, many, many spokes extending and retracting to fit the shape of the ground, take her across the lawn like a pat of butter skidding across hot Teflon. Hero, who, as of 30 seconds ago, is no longer the deliverator, gets out of the car and pulls his swords out of the trunk, straps them around his body, prepares for a breathtaking nighttime escape run across the Mews at Windsor Heights territory. The border with Oakwood Estates is only minutes away. He has the layout memorized, sort of, and he knows how these Burbclave cops operate, because he used to be one. So he has a good chance of making it. But it's going to be interesting. Above him, in the house that owns the pool, a light has come on, and children are looking down at him through their bedroom windows, all warm and fuzzy in their Lil Crips and Ninja Raft Warrior pajamas, which can either be flameproof or non-carcinogenic, but not both at the same time. Dad is emerging from the back door, pulling on a jacket. It is a nice family, A safe family in a house full of light, like the family he was a part of until 30 seconds ago. Hooah! Let's see, what time is it? Okay. Well, that's because of the distractions that I ran into. Let me just plan out where I'm going next. Yes. I think we can probably get to chapter 5 at the very least. Preferably beyond, because that'll... where are we? Oh, I know where I want to get to. Let me, yeah, probably get up to chapter 7. That'll get us a significant chunk. It's a pretty long... It's longer than Blind Sight, anyway. So this is fairly daunting, by a fair margin at that. But we're doing it. I'm probably going to wind up changing character voices as I go, because as I've mentioned before, these are all fly-by-wire. I'm doing these with minimal planning. I am not exactly an artiste, as they say. I'm just doing this for fun. And fun it is. That entire sequence is intense. Intense like a circus. Okay, here we are. All right. All right, cat, you're crushing my limb here. Just gonna get a quick drink of water. Chapter 3. Hero protagonist and Vitaly Chernobyl, roommates, are chilling out in their home, a spacious 20 by 30 in a U-Store-It in Inglewood, California. The room has a concrete slab floor, corrugated steel walls separating it from the neighboring units, and, this is a mark of distinction and luxury, a roll-up steel door that faces northwest, giving them a few red rays at times like this, when the sun is setting over LAX. From time to time, a 777 or a Sukhoi Kawasaki hypersonic transport will taxi in front of the sun and block the sunset with its rudder, or just mangle the red light with its jet exhaust, braiding the parallel rays into a dappled pattern on the wall. But there are worse places to live. There are much worse places right here in this U-Store-It. Only the big units like this one have their own doors. Most of them are accessed via a communal loading dock that leads to a maze of wide corrugated steel hallways and freight elevators. These are slum housing, 5 by 10s and 10 by 10s, where Yanomama tribespersons cook beans and parboil fistfuls of coca leaves over heaps of burning lottery tickets. It is whispered that in the old days, when the U-Store-It was actually used for its intended purpose, namely providing cheap extra storage space to Californians with too many material goods, certain entrepreneurs came to the front office, rented out 10 by 10s using fake IDs, filled them up with steel drums full of toxic chemical waste, and then abandoned them, leaving the problem for the U-Store-It Corporation to handle. According to these rumors, U-Store-It just padlocked those units and wrote them off. Now, the immigrants claim, certain units remain haunted by this chemical specter. It is a story they tell their children, to keep them from trying to break into padlocked units. No one has ever tried to break into Hero and Vitali's unit because there's nothing in there to steal, and at this point in their lives, neither one of them is important enough to kill, kidnap, or interrogate. Hero owns a couple of nice Nipponese swords, but he always wears them, and the whole idea of stealing fantastically dangerous weapons presents the would-be perp with inherent dangers and contradictions. When you are wrestling for possession of a sword, the man with the handle always wins. Hero also has a pretty nice computer that he usually takes with him when he goes anywhere. Vitali owns half a carton of Lucky Strikes, an electric guitar, and a hangover. At the moment, Vitaly Chernobyl is stretched out on a futon, quiescent, and hero protagonist is sitting cross-legged at a low table, Nipponese style, consisting of a cargo pallet set on cinder blocks. As the sun sets, its red light is supplanted by the light of many neon logos emanating from the franchise ghetto that constitutes this You Store It's natural habitat. This light, known as low glow, fills in the shadowy corners of the unit with seedy, oversaturated colors. Hero has cappuccino skin and spiky, truncated dreadlocks. His hair does not cover as much of his head as it used to, but he is a young man, by no means bald or balding, and the slight retreat of his hairline only makes more of his high cheekbones. He is wearing shiny goggles that wrap halfway around his head. The bows of the goggles have little earphones that are plugged into his outer ears. The earphones have some built-in noise cancellation features. This sort of thing works best on steady noise. When jumbo jets make their takeoff runs on the runway across the street, the sound is reduced to a low, doodling hum. But when Vitaly Chernobyl thrashes out an experimental guitar solo, it still hurts Hero's ears. The goggles throw a light, smoky haze across his eyes and reflect a distorted, wide-angle view of a brilliantly lit boulevard that stretches off into an infinite blackness. This boulevard does not really exist. It is a computer-rendered view of an imaginary place. Beneath this image, it is possible to see Hero's eyes, which look Asian. They are from his mother, who is Korean by way of Nippon. The rest of him looks more like his father, who was African by way of Texas by way of the Army, back in the days before it got split up into a number of competing organizations such as General Jim's Defense System and Admiral Bob's National Security. 4 things are on the cargo pallet. A bottle of expensive beer from the Puget Sound area, which Hero cannot really afford, a long sword known in Nippon as a katana, and a short sword known as a wakizashi. Hero's father looted these from Japan after World War II went atomic, and a computer. The computer is a featureless black wedge. It does not have a power cord, but there is a narrow translucent plastic tube emerging from a hatch on the rear, spiraling across the cargo pallet and the floor, and plugged into a crudely installed fiber optic socket above the head of the sleeping Vitaly Chernobyl. In the center of the plastic tube is a hair-thin fiber optic cable. The cable is carrying a lot of information back and forth between Hero's computer and the rest of the world. In order to transmit the same amount of information on paper, they would have to arrange for a 747 cargo freighter packed with telephone books and encyclopedias to power dive into their unit every couple of minutes forever. Hero can't really afford the computer either, but he has to have one. It is a tool of his trade. In the worldwide community of hackers, Hero is a talented drifter. This is the kind of lifestyle that sounded romantic to him as recently as 5 years ago. But in the bleak light of full adulthood, which is to one's early 20s as Sunday morning is to Saturday night, he can clearly see what it really amounts to. He's broke and unemployed. And a few short weeks ago, his tenure as a pizza deliverer, the only pointless dead-end job he really enjoys, came to an end. Since then, he's been putting a lot more emphasis on his auxiliary emergency backup job, freelance stringer for the CIC, the Central Intelligence Corporation of Langley, Virginia. The business is a simple one. Hero gets information. It may be gossip, videotape, audio tape, a fragment of a computer disk, a Xerox of a document. It can even be a joke based on the latest It can even be a joke based on the latest highly publicized disaster. He uploads it to the CIC database, the library, formerly the Library of Congress, but no one calls it that anymore. Most people are not entirely clear on what the word Congress means. And even the word library is getting hazy. It used to be a place full of books, mostly old ones. Then they began to include videotapes, records, and magazines. Then all of the information got converted into machine-readable form, which is to say, ones and zeros. And as the number of media grew, the material became more up to date, and the methods for searching the library became more and more sophisticated. It approached the point where there was no substantive difference between the Library of Congress and the Central Intelligence Agency. Fortuitously, this happened just as the government was falling apart anyway. So they merged and kicked out a big fat stock offering. Millions of other CIC stringers are uploading millions of other fragments at the same time. CIC's clients, mostly large corporations and sovereigns, rifle through the library looking for useful information, and if they find a use for something that Hero put into it, Hero gets paid. A year ago, he uploaded an entire first draft film script that he stole from an agent's wastebasket in Burbank. Half a dozen studios wanted to see it. He ate and vacationed off that one for 6 months. Since then, times have been leaner. He has been learning the hard way that 99% of the information in the library never gets used at all. Case in point. After a certain courier tipped him off to the existence of Vitaly Chernobyl, he put a few intensive weeks into researching a new musical phenomenon, the rise of Ukrainian nuclear fuzz grunge collectives in LA. He has planted exhaustive notes on this trend in the library, including video and audio. Not one single record label, agent, or rock critic has bothered to access it. The top level of the top surface of the computer is smooth except for a fisheye lens, a polished glass dome with a purplish optical coating. Whenever Hero is using the machine, this lens emerges and clicks into place, its base flush with the surface of the computer. The neighborhood low glow is curved and foreshortened on its surface. Hero finds it erotic. This is partly because he hasn't been properly laid in several weeks. But there's more to it. Hiro's father, who was stationed in Japan for many years, was obsessed with cameras. He kept bringing them back from his stints in the Far East, encased in many protective layers, so that when he took them out to show Hero, it was like watching an exquisite striptease as they emerged from all that black leather and nylon, zippers and straps. And once the lens was finally exposed, pure geometric equation made real, so powerful and vulnerable at once, Hero could only think it was like nuzzling through skirts and lingerie and outer labia and inner labia. It made him feel naked and weak and brave. The lens can see half of the universe, the half that is above the computer, which includes most of Hero. In this way, it can generally keep track of where Hero is and what direction he's looking in. Down inside the computer, there are 3 lasers, a red one, a green one, and a blue one. They are powerful enough to make a bright light, but not powerful enough to burn through the back of your eyeball and broil your brain, fry your frontals, laze your lobes. As everyone learned in elementary school, these 3 colors of light can be combined, with different intensities, to produce any color that Hero's eye is capable of seeing. In this way, a narrow beam of any color can be shot out of the innards of the computer up through that fisheye lens in any direction. Through the use of electronic mirrors inside the computer, this beam is made to sweep back and forth across the lenses of Hero's goggles, in much the same way as the electron beam in a television paints the inner surface of the eponymous tube. The resulting image hangs in space in front of Hero's view of reality. By drawing a slightly different image in front of each eye, the image can be made 3-dimensional. By changing the image 72 times a second, it can be made to move. By drawing the moving 3-dimensional image at a resolution of 2K pixels on a side, it can be as sharp as the eye can perceive. And by pumping stereo digital sound through the little earphones, the moving 3D pictures can have a perfectly realistic soundtrack. So, Hero's not actually here at all. He's in a computer-generated universe that his computer is drawing onto his goggles and pumping into his earphones. In the lingo, this imaginary place is known as the metaverse. Hero spends a lot of time in the metaverse. It beats the shit out of the you store it.
Hero is approaching the street. It is the Broadway, the Champs-Élysées of the metaverse. It is the brilliantly lit boulevard that can be seen, miniaturized, and backward reflected in the lenses of his goggles. It does not really exist, but right now, millions of people are walking up and down it. The dimensions of the street are fixed by a protocol, hammered out by the computer graphics ninja overlords of the Association for Computing Machinery's Global Multimedia Protocol Group. The street claims to be a grand boulevard going all the way around the equator of a black sphere with a radius a bit more than 10,000 kilometers. That makes it 65,536 kilometers around, which is considerably bigger than the Earth. The number 65,536 is an awkward figure to everyone except a hacker, who recognize it more readily than his own mother's date of birth. It happens to be a power of 2, 2 to the 16th power to be exact. And even the exponent 16 is equal to 2 to the 4th, and 4 is equal to 2 to 2 squared. Along with 256, 32,768, and 2,100, oh no, that's 2 billion. 2,147,483,648. 65,536 is one of the foundation stones of the hacker universe, in which 2 is the only really important number, because that's how many digits a computer can recognize. One of those digits is 0, and the other is 1. Any number that can be created by fetishistically multiplying 2's by each other and subtracting the occasional 1 will be instantly recognizable to a hacker. Like any place in reality, the street is subject to development. Developers can build their own small streets feeding off the main one. They can build buildings, parks, signs, as well as things that do not exist in reality, such as vast hovering overhead light shows, special neighborhoods where the rules of three-dimensional space-time are ignored, and free combat zones where people can go to hunt and kill each other. The only difference is that since the street does not really exist, it's just a computer graphics protocol written down on a piece of paper somewhere, none of these things is being physically built. They are, rather, pieces of software made available to the public over the worldwide fiber optics network. When Hero goes into the metaverse and looks down the street and sees buildings and electric signs stretching off into the darkness, disappearing over the curve of the globe, he is actually staring at the graphic representations, the user interfaces, of a myriad different pieces of software that have been engineered by major corporations. In order to place these things on the street, they have had to get approval from the Global Multimedia Protocol Group, have had to buy frontage on the street, get zoning approval, obtain permits, bribe inspectors, the whole bit. The money these corporations pay to build things on the street all goes into a trust fund owned and operated by the GMPG, which pays for developing and expanding the machinery that enables the street to exist. Hero has a house in a neighborhood just off the busiest part of the street. It is a very old neighborhood by street standards. About 10 years ago, when the street protocol was first written, Hero and some of his buddies pooled their money and bought one of the first development licenses, created a little neighborhood of hackers. At the time, it was just a little patchwork of light amid a vast blackness. Back then, the street was just a necklace of street lights around a black ball in space. Since then, the neighborhood hasn't changed much, but the street has. By getting in on it early, Hero's buddies got a head start on the whole business. Some of them even got very rich off of it. That's why Hero has a nice big house in the metaverse but has to share a 20 by 30 in reality. Real estate acumen does not always extend across universes. The sky and the ground are black, like a computer screen that hasn't had anything drawn into it yet. Yet is always Yet it is always nighttime in the metaverse, and the street is always garish and brilliant, like Las Vegas freed from constraints of physics and finance. But people in Hero's neighborhood are very good programmers, so it's tasteful. The houses look like real houses. There's a couple of Frank Lloyd Wright reproductions and some fancy Victoriana. So it's always a shock to step out onto the street, where everything seems to be a mile high. This is downtown, the most heavily developed area. If you go a couple of 100 kilometers in either direction, the development will taper down to almost nothing, just a thin chain of streetlights casting white pools on the black velvet ground. But downtown is a dozen Manhattans, embroidered with neon and stacked on top of each other. In the real world, planet Earth, reality, there are somewhere between 6 and 10 billion people. At any given time, most of them are making mud bricks or field stripping their AK-47s. Perhaps a billion of them have enough money to own a computer. These people have more money than all of the others put together. Of these billion potential computer owners, maybe a quarter of them actually bother to own computers. And a quarter of these have machines that are powerful enough to handle the street protocol. That makes for about 60 million people who can be on the street at any given time. Add in another 60 million or so who can't really afford it but go there anyway by using public machines, or machines owned by their school or their employer, and at any given time the street is occupied by twice the population of New York City. That's why this damn place is so overdeveloped. Put in a sign or a building on the street, and the 100 million richest, hippest, best connected people on Earth will see it every day of their lives. It is 100 meters wide, with a narrow monorail track running down the middle. The monorail is a free piece of public utility software that enables users to change their location on the street rapidly and smoothly. A lot of people just ride back and forth on it, looking at the sights. When Hero first saw this place, 10 years ago, the monorail hadn't been written yet. He and his buddies had to write car and motorcycle software in order to get around. They would take their software out and race it in the black desert of the electronic night. Chapter 4. YT has been privileged to watch many a young Clint plant his sweet face in an empty Burbclave pool during an unauthorized night run, but always on a skateboard, never ever in a car. The landscape of the suburban night has much weird beauty if you just look. Back on the paddle again. It rolls across the yard on a set of Radix Mark IV smart wheels. She upgraded to said magical sprockets after the following ad appeared in Thrasher magazine. Chiseled spam is what you will see in the mirror if you surf on a weak plank with dumb, fixed wheels and interface with a muffler, retread, snow turd, roadkill, drive shaft, railroad tie, or unconscious pedestrian. If you think this is unlikely, you've been surfing too many ghost malls. All of these obstacles and more were recently observed on a 1 mile stretch of the New Jersey Turnpike. Any surfer who tried to groove that vard on a stock plank would have been sneezing brains. Don't listen to so-called purists who claim any obstacle can be jumped. Professional couriers know. If you have pooned a vehicle moving fast enough for fun and profit, your reaction time is cut to tenths of a second, even less if you are way spooled. Buy a set of Radix Mark II smart wheels. It's cheaper than a total face retread and a lot more fun. Smart wheels use sonar, laser range finding, and millimeter wave radar to identify mufflers and other debris before you. Even get honed about them. Don't get Midasized. Upgrade today. These were words of wisdom. YT bought the wheels. Each one consists of a hub with many stout spokes. Each spoke telescopes in 5 sections. On the end is a squat foot, rubber tread on the bottom, swiveling on a ball joint. As the wheels roll, the feet plant themselves one at a time, almost glomming into one continuous tire. If you surf over a bump, the spokes retract to pass over it. If you surf over a chuck hole, the robo-prongs plumb its asphalty depths. Either way, the shock is thereby absorbed. No thuds, smacks, vibrations, or clunks will make their way into the plank or the converse high tops with which you tread it. The ad was right. You cannot be a professional road surfer without smart wheels. Prompt delivery of the pizza will be a trivial matter. She glides from the dewy turf over the lip of the driveway without a bump, picks up speed on the crete, surfs down its slope into the street. A twitch of the butt reorients the plank. Now she is cruising down Homedale Mews looking for a victim. A black car, alive with nasty lights, winds past her the other way, closing in on the hapless hero protagonist. Her Radix night vision goggles darken strategically to cut the noxious glaring of same. Her pupils feel safe to remain wide open, scanning the road for signs of movement. The swimming pool was at the crest of this burbclave. It's downhill from here, but not downhill enough. Half a block away, on a side street, a bimbo box, a minivan, grinds its 4 pathetic cylinders into action. She sees it cater corner from her present coordinates. The white backup lights flash instantly as the driver shifts into D by way of R and N. YT aims herself at the curb, hits it at a fast running velocity. The spokes of her smart wheels see it coming and retract in the right way so that she glides from street to lawn without a hitch. Across the lawn, the feet leave a trail of hexagonal pad marks. A stray dog turd, red with meaty undigestible food coloring, is embossed with the Radix logo, a mirror image of which is printed on the tread of each spoke. The bimbo box is pulling away from the curb, across the street. Squirrely scrubbing noises squirm from its sidewalls as they grind against the curb. We are in the burbs, where it is better to take 1,000 clicks off the lifespan of your good years by invariably grinding them up against curbs than to risk social ostracism and outbreaks of mass hysteria by parking several inches away, out in the middle of the street. "That's okay, Mom. I can walk to the curb from here." A menace to traffic, a deadly obstacle to uncertain young bicyclists. YT has pressed the release button on her Poon's reel handle unit, allowing a meter of cord to unwind. She whips it up and around her head like a bolo on the Austral Range. She is about to lambada this trite conveyance. The head of the Poon, salad bowl size, whistles as it orbits around. This is unnecessary, but sounds cool. Pooning the bimbo box takes more skill than a ped would ever imagine, because of their very road unworthiness, their congenital lack of steel or other ferrous matter for the magna poon to bite down on. Now they have superconducting poons that stick to aluminum bodywork by inducing eddy currents in the actual flesh of the car, turning it into an unwilling electromagnet, but YT does not have one of these. They are the trademark of the hardcore burbclave surfer, which, despite this evening's entertainment, she is not. Her poon will only stick to steel, iron, or, slightly, to nickel. The only steel in a bimbo box of this make is in the frame. She makes a low slung approach. Her poon's orbital plane is nearly vertical. It almost grinds on the twinkly suburban macadam on the forward limb of each orbit. When she pounds the release button, it takes off from an altitude of about 1 centimeter, angling slightly upward across the street under the floor of the bimbo box and sucks steel. It's a solid hit, as solid as you can get on this nebula of air, upholstery, paint, and marketing known as the family minivan. The reaction is instantaneous, quick-witted by Burb standards. This person wants YT gone. The van takes off like a hormone-pumped bull who has just been nailed in the ass by the barbed probe of a picador. It's not Mom at the wheel. It's young Studley, the teenaged boy who, like every other boy in this burbclave, has been taking intravenous shots of horse testosterone every afternoon in the high school locker room since he was 14 years old. Now he's bulky, stupid, thoroughly predictable. He steers erratically, artificially pumped muscles not fully under his control. The molded, leather-grained, maroon-colored steering wheel smells like his mother's hand lotion. This drives him into a rage. The bimbo box surges and slows, because he is pumping the gas pedal, because holding it to the floor doesn't seem to have any effect. He wants this car to be like his muscles, more power than he knows what to do with. Instead, it hampers him. As a compromise, he hits the button that says Power. Another button that says Economy pops out and goes dead, reminding him, like an educational demonstration, that the two are mutually exclusive. The van's tiny engine downshifts, which makes it feel more powerful. He holds his foot steady on the gas, and, making the run down Cottage Heights Road, the minivan's speed approaches 100 kilometers. Approaching the terminus of Cottage Heights Road, where it tees into Bellwood Valley Road, he espies a fire hydrant. TMAWH fire hydrants are numerous for safety and highly designed for property values, not the squat iron things imprinted with the name of some godforsaken Industrial Revolution foundry and furry from 100 variously flaked layers of cheap city paint. They are brass, robot polished every Thursday morning, dignified pipes rising straight up from the perfect, chemically induced turf of the Burbclave lawns, flaring out to present potential firefighters with a menu of 3 possible hose connections. They were designed on a computer screen by the same aesthetes who designed the Dinah Victorian houses and the tasteful mailboxes and the immense marble street signs that sit at each intersection like headstones. Designed on a computer screen, but with an eye toward the elegance of things past and forgotten about. Fire hydrants that tasteful people are proud to have on their front lawns. Fire hydrants are the real estate Fire hydrants that the real estate people don't feel the need to airbrush out of pictures. This fucking courier is about to die, knotted around one of those fire hydrants. Studley the testosterone boy will see to it. It is a maneuver he has witnessed on television, which tells no lies, a trick he has practiced many times in his head. Building up maximum speed on Cottage Heights, he will yank the handbrake while swinging the wheel. The ass end of the minivan will snap around. The pesky courier will be cracked like a whip at the end of her unbreakable cable. Into the fire hydrant she will go. Studley the teenager will be victorious, free to cruise in triumph down Bellwood Valley and out into the greater world of adult men in cool cars, free to go return his overdue videotape, Raft Warriors 4, The Final Battle. YT does not know any of this for a fact, but she suspects it. None of this is real. It is a reconstruction of the psychological environment inside of that bimbo box. She sees the hydrant coming a mile away, sees Studley reaching down to rest one hand on the parking brake. It is all so obvious. She feels sorry for Studley and his ilk. She reels out, gives herself lots of slack. He whips the wheel, jerks the brake. The minivan goes sideways, overshooting its mark, and doesn't quite snap her around the way he wanted. She has to help it. As its ass is rotating around, she reels in hard, converting that gift of angular momentum into forward velocity, and ends up shooting right past the van, going well over a mile a minute. She is headed for a marble gravestone that says Bellwood Valley Road. She leans away from it, leans into a vicious turn. Her spokes grip the pavement and push her away from that gravestone. She can touch the pavement with one hand. She is heeled over so hard. The spokes push her onto the desired street. Meanwhile, she has clicked off the electromagnetic force that held her pooned to the van. The poon head comes loose, caroms off the pavement behind her as it is automatically reeled in to reunite with the handle. She is headed straight for the exit of the burbclave at fantastic speed. Behind her, an explosive crash sounds, resonating in her gut as the minivan slides sideways into the gravestone. She ducks under the security gate and plunges into traffic on Oahu. She cuts between two veering, blaring, and screeching BMWs. BMW drivers take evasive action at the drop of a hat, emulating the drivers in the BMW advertisements. This is how they convince themselves that they didn't get ripped off. She drops into a fetal position to pass underneath a semi, headed for the Jersey barrier in the median strip like she's going to die, but Jersey barriers are easy for the smart wheels. That lower limb of the barrier has such a nice bank to it, like they designed it for road surfers. She rides halfway up the barrier, angles gently back down to the lane for a smooth landing, and she's in traffic. There's a car right there, and she doesn't even have to throw the poon, just reaches out and plants it right on the lid of the trunk. This driver's resigned to his fate, doesn't care, doesn't hassle her. He takes her as far as the entrance to the next burbclave, which is a white columns. Very southern, traditional, one of the apartheid burbclaves. Big ornate sign above the main gate. White people only. Non-Caucasians must be processed. She's got a white columns visa. YT has a visa to everywhere. It's right there on her chest, a little barcode. A laser scans it as she careens toward the entrance, and the immigration gate swings open for her. It's an ornate ironwork number, but harried White Columns residents don't have time to sit idling at the burbclave entrances, watching the gate slowly roll aside in Old South majestic turpitude, so it's mounted on some kind of electromagnetic railgun. She is gliding down the antebellum tree-lined lanes of White Columns, one microplantation after another, still coasting on the residual kinetic energy boost that originated in the fuel in Studley the teenager's gas tank. The world is full of power and energy, and a person can go far by just skimming off a tiny bit of it. The LEDs on the pizza box say 2932, and the guy who ordered it, Mr. Pudgley and his neighbors, the Pinkhearts and the Roundass clan, are all gathered on the front lawn of their micro-plantation, prematurely celebrating, like they had just bought the winning lottery ticket. From their front door they have a clear view all the way down to Oahu Road, and they can see that nothing is on its way that looks like a Cosa Nostra delivery car. Oh, there is curiosity, sniffing interest, at this courier with the big square thing under her arm. Maybe a portfolio, a new ad layout for some Caucasian supremacist marketing honcho in the next plat over, but the Pudgleys and the Pinkhearts and the Roundasses are all staring at her, slack-jawed. She has just enough residual energy to swing into their driveway. Her momentum carries her to the top. She stops next to Mr. Pudgley's Acura and Mrs. Pudgley's Bimbo box and steps off her plank. The spokes, noting her departure, even themselves out, plant themselves on the top of the driveway, refuse to roll backward. A blinding light from the heavens shines down upon them. Her night visions keep her from being blinded, but the customers bend their knees and hunch their shoulders as though the light were heavy. The men hold their hairy forearms up against their brows, swivel their great tubular bodies to and fro, trying to find the source of the illumination, muttering clipped notations to each other, brief theories about its source, fully in control of the unknown phenomenon. The women coo and flutter. Because of the magical influence of the night visions, YT can still see the LEDs. 2954, And that's what it says when she drops the pizza off on Mr. Pudgley's wingtips. The mystery light goes off. Sorry about that. Got a couple texts that were actually quite important that I had to respond to. It has been a busy day. It has been a busy day. Uh, unexpectedly so. Technical things. I say technical. It's not actually all that hard, but when you're the only person who understands, even in the slightest, and I don't profess to truly comprehend it, the heating system, which is based on geothermal and uses a very fancy array of heat pumps in the apartment building I live in, and you know more than the now new current uh, building manager who is too proud or too unimaginative or too stupid um, to ask the previous building manager how any of it all works. It's you sometimes get love notes, and since it's the winter and if things are going to break down, heat pumps specifically, they're going to break down when they actually have to be used. Well, you get the idea. Okay. Picking right back up where we were. Sorry about that. The others are still blinded, but YT sees into the night with her night visions. Sees, that's with a K, by the way, Knight, like in Shining Armor. Sees all the way, or Rider for that matter, sees all the way into near infrared, and she sees the source of it, a double-bladed stealth helicopter 30 feet above the neighbor's house. It is tastefully black and unadorned, not a news crew. Though another helicopter, an old-fashioned audible one, brightly festooned with up-to-the-minute logos, is thumping and whacking its way across White Column's airspace at this very moment, goosing the plantations with its own spotlight. Hoping to be the first to obtain this major scoop, a pizza was delivered late tonight, film at 11. Later, our personality journalist speculates on where Uncle Enzo will stay when he makes his compulsory trip to our standard metropolitan statistical area. But the black chopper is running dark, would be nearly invisible if not for the infrared trail coming out of its twin turbojets. It is a mafia chopper, and all they wanted to do was to record the event on videotape so that Mr. Pudgley would not have a leg to hop around on in court should he decide to take his case down to Judge Bob's judicial system and argue for a free pizza. One more thing. There's a lot of shit in the air tonight, a few megatons of topsoil blowing down from Fresno, and so when the laser beam comes on, it is startlingly visible. A tiny geometric line, a million blazing red grains strung on a fiber optic thread, snapping into life instantly between the chopper and YT's chest. It appears to widen into a narrow fan, an acute triangle of red light whose base encompasses all of YT's torso. It takes half a second. They are scanning the many barcodes mounted on her chest. They are finding out who she is. The Mafia now knows everything about YT, where she lives, what she does, her eye color, credit record, ancestry, and blood type. That done, the chopper tilts and vanishes into the night like a hockey puck sliding into a bowl of India ink. Mr. Pudgley is saying something, making a joke about how close they came. The others eke out a laugh, but YT cannot hear them because they are buried under the thunder whack of the news chopper, then flash frozen and crystallized under its spotlight. The night air is full of bugs, and now YT can see all of them, swirling in mysterious formations, hitching rides on people and on currents of air. There is one on her wrist, but she doesn't slap at it. The spotlight lingers for a minute. The broad square of the pizza box bearing the Cosa Nostra logo is mute testimony. They hover, shoot a little tape just in case. YT is bored. She gets on her plank. The wheels blossom and become circular. She guides a tight, wobbly course around the cars, coasts down into the street. The spotlight follows her for a moment, maybe picking up some stock footage. Videotape is cheap. You never know when something will be useful, so you might as well videotape it. People make their living that way. People in the intel business. People like hero protagonist. They just know stuff, or they just go around and videotape stuff. They put it in the library. When people want to know the particular things that they know or watch their videotapes, they pay them money and check it out of the library or just buy it outright. This is a weird racket, but YT likes the idea of it. Usually the CIC won't pay any attention to a courier, but apparently Hero has a deal with them. Maybe she can make a deal with Hero, because YT knows lots of interesting little things. One of the things she knows is that the Mafia owes her a favor. And with that, I am going to have to call it for today. Delays be damned. Oh, yeah, 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 I am going to have to. Um, Partly due to those delays and partly due to the events that transpire beyond the Empyrean fold, the void that separates my voice and reality from your own, if you have one, if you're all real and not just imagined simulacra. Although there's an argument to be made that we are all kind of just imaginary and we have no real conscious volition, but we won't go there for today. That's some philosophy shit or something. Um, it's not even philosophy. We just aren't as in control of ourselves as we think we are due to chemical and physics-based reasons. We're programmed pretty well to fool ourselves out of that, but whatever. So yeah, Snow Crash. Hope you enjoyed this first start. For the next several weeks, this is what I'll be doing on these Storytime Saturday streams. And by several, I mean probably like 8. Let's see if that's one chunk, and that's however many pages. That's what call that one. Fortunately, other readings should be longer. I think 2, 3. should have measured this out ahead of time. 4, 5, 6, and I can do it from there. 6. Probably more like 12 then. Yeah, more like 12 sessions. So we've got our work cut out for us, unless I do really long streams, which I might do. Um, they should all be longer than this one though, because this one had the interruptions. I wanted to make a lot more progress, but this is a taster, and we will make the headway. Hope you people are enjoying. Hope you people will continue to enjoy. As ever, I do have other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Mondays stream where coming up, wherein I do something with mechs or giant robots or something mecha adjacent. Um, I have a Warframe Wednesday stream wherein I do Warframe stuff for a couple hours. Um, and then I have this one. I may be doing a City of Heroes stream, provided I can get the other person that I wanted to get to do it as a duo to do it too for City of Heroes slash villains, but that hasn't materialized yet. And we will just see. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed and have a great week.